Side. Off the window opposite of the structure, my left ear, I hear a sound that nearly caused me to piss myself. What a ho, Isaiah, hold up, wait a minute. What's good, guys? My name is welcome back with another video for today, guys. 3 disturbing true military war horror stories by Mr. Nightmare Military Horror Stories. Man, I've been hearing actually like a couple people talking about how they had some crazy weird military stories happening in the woods, or just something always happening in the dark. You know what I'm saying? Like they hear something, they see someone running in the woods or something that they don't, and they try to shoot it at it doesn't die. I don't know, something crazy, so we're going to react to these. God bless you all. Remember to hit that like button. Let's get right to it. This particular story took place when I was in the Air Force and stationed in Louisiana. I won't mention the name of the base, but I'm sure that there are many people out there who will know which one it is on and make mention of some of the details to the story. This story took place a few years after I had been stationed there. I first arrived to this base in 2006, and upon my arrival, I, along with many other new troops, were greeted with many different stories of horror. There were stories about a man in a Hafat who walked a dark, long, and narrow dirt road on the outskirts of a storage facility. What a top boy you got, the Mad Hatter's carrying y'all. There was another story about a crazy man who was hit by a patrol car and ran off into the woods. Next to the same place, but my story relates to a separate story that was told to me. It was my second night on shift. As I recall, I was posted with an airman who had been there for several years. She gave a rundown about some little girl who had been visiting her father when the storage area we were working in was being constructed, which was well before any of our time. The story went that that little girl was playing on some of the structures while her father was working, but had fallen to her death by slipping off the edge at the top of the structure itself. Oh, that's crazy. Most of the story didn't make sense to me at the time, but regardless of the facts, it still scared the fooling out of me. Maya, to make matters worse, the airman had taken me to the exact place where the supposed story took place. He would shut off the engine and turned off the music. As we just sat there in silence, he startled me a few times, but nothing ever happened. Now skip forward about 3 years. I was scheduled to work that particular spot of the base this night. Keep in mind that I'd been visiting the spot for years now. But at this point, the storage area had been completely closed down, except for a few minor areas, which required us to do physical drive-thrus and checks of this area. The shift itself started out rather shitty. Me and my Alpha aka partner had been given a cattle truck to do this. Patrolus or normal vehicle was in the shop for maintenance. Yeah, I'm not kidding, a cattle truck. I know this part doesn't seem very important to the story at the moment. Wait, you said a cattle? I didn't even take that in cattle truck. It will tie into the story eventually, so to save on time, let's skip forward a few hours. Alright, we were scheduled to do 3 random checks of the storage facility that night, and we had already completed 2 of the 3 prior without any issues. So come about 4 in the morning, we decided to do our last check, seeing as all the maintenance guys should went home for the night in this area. The only way to access the area was with 2 very large separate gates, which took forever to open. We pile and lock the gates behind use and continue on our way. Alright, Mayalha was driving during this check, and I was the spotter who used the flashlight to check the lock on each structure. An important detail that I left out, which may be necessary here, is that the story of the little girl had taken place on a road within the storage area, which we called Echo Street. Oh boy, by this point everything was fine, and we had finished our rounds. My Alpha makes the final turn down Echo Street. We had both been pretty talkative during most of the night, and we were just shooting the... When I got a new uneasy feeling, something felt different, but I couldn't make out what it was. Oh boy, we were about halfway down the road when things became almost completely and frighteningly silent. To vent the rumble of our cattle truck and the faint noise of the radio playing seemed to become less audible. What as we approached the structure from my previous story. And I must stress at this point that event telling or typing this part still brings a chill down my spine and makes my eyes stir up in fear as we approach the structure itself. It turned my head to the outside of the window opposite of the structure. My left ear, I hear a sound that nearly caused me to piss myself. What a sound of a person groaning. Heck no, that was in my left ear. That was nuts. No, got me all the way messed up with this one. If someone is groaning, making those noises in my ear, oh my goodness, I'm telling the driver to put your foot on it. You know what I'm saying? We're getting the heck out of here, or moaning in distress, sort of like the moan of the girl from The Grudge Eyes. I'm very serious. The creepy moan begins storing inside the cab of the truck between the two of us, the dark emptiness of the middle seat. I feel my blood turn cold, and it quickly turned to my Alpha and yelled, "Dude, cut that." My Alpha turns to me with a confused look on his face at this point. He begins to take his foot off the accelerator. ask, am I going too fast? I remain silent for a moment, with my hand in a pausing gesture, and I listen. I hear the noise again. My partner interrupts and asks what's wrong. I quickly turn the "boy, I hate that" sound in my ear breath that is weird without saying anything at first. And then I whisper to him, "Do you hear that?" It stops the truck in confusion and listens closely. This is Demonis. It was almost dead silent for a second or two when we both hear it this time. Oh my gosh, long chilling a woman I chode in my ears. It sounded like someone was struggling to breathe and taking an agent breath of air, while someone was trying to strangle them. That crazy sound was beyond terrifying. And the fact that I wasn't the only one hearing it only made it more of a horrifying experience. I found myself beginning to ask him the original question again, but it quickly interrupts and with a strong sound of fear in his voice, what the is that no has stupidly waited to see if we could hear it again, the rumble of the gates. So on the why did you wastily and recognize they made a sort of metal on metal clatter, and the diesel engine has that typical rumble as well, but in between both the noises we heard it again for the final time. Oh my gosh, it sounded even louder, but this time it sounded like it was coming from both inside and outside of the truck. Keep driving, being surrounded by whatever was making that noise of distressed demons without even making a beep peep. My Alpha puts the truck in drive and he hauls us off that street quicker than I have ever gone on any other street in that entire base yet. Nearly flips the truck going around a curve, but it doesn't bother us one bit. We were both in an unspoken agreement that we wanted to get out of the quickly. We got to the two gates again, and I hopped out of the truck as fast as I could. My Alpha watched my back as I quickly opened both gates, while we jumped back into the driver's seat, fed out, and waited for me to close both gates as well. Oh man, once we completed that task, we quickly returned to the main part of the base and requested to meet with our flight chief to tell him what had happened. When we finally met up with him, we expected him to think that we were both full of, or that we had just imagined the entire thing, being as it was so late into our 12-hour shift and we were both tired. But I clearly remember him saying to the both, completely believe you. As a matter of fact, I had something like that happen twice, once is in that same place and the other in that then building behind you, a tour jailhouse brogan. I know that sounds completely cliche. Why, if you know, why haven't you told anyone? Bro, why haven't you told anyone what you kept this toy yourself so we can get clucked up? No bro, you. That is crazy, and you are Aria higher authority, bro. You don't like, but it honestly happened, and it still brings those tears off frightened to my eyes every time. I tell I went back to that storage area only once after that, but it never went down that road again, and it never went after dark, never again, never. I haven't told this story to many people except for my wife and a few other of my close friends. It happened while I was stationed in the Army as a radio operator during the Vietnam War, and I haven't forgotten it to this day. I was a young recruit freshly drafted out of high school, and I didn't know much about the war. I had no idea what I was getting into or what it was all for, boy, but what I did know was that I had a duty to my fellow servicemen. We arrived on a Friday evening and got loaded onto many buses to be taken to our barracks. The air was very humid and the soil was soaking wet due to a storm that had just passed through the area. Oh man, I vividly remember the drive and how it stunk like sewer. My first night was uneventful and quiet, but well felt the atmosphere as our drill sergeant staunted us with stories during basic training. I remember the half moon right over my head, which kept peeking out from over the clouds, and all of us were just sitting around telling jokes. I was more of a technical guy and didn't have much aptitude for comedy, so I just listened, and my duty was to manage communications between my unit and all of our other guys so that everyone knew what was going on everywhere else. Alright, I carried a box on my back, which were the size of rad-eye devices back then, and also a ton more equipment and supplies. I was quickly assigned to a tight-knit unit who had just lost their communications operator to a landmine, and I remember the first time we made contact with the enemy. It was the loudest thing I ever heard. We were in a dense part of the jungle and couldn't see the enemy at all, but we quickly ducked as soon as they began firing a tooth, and we opened fire in their general direction in return. Well, my good seemed to last forever. We probably ceased fire after a couple of minutes. So this is the ultimate, are you a man to do this? Are you a man to go your way to join the army, oh hand, and to get fired? And shot at man war is another story. War for ward to close in on the enemy and secure the area. And it was the first time I ever saw the enemy up close. There were 3 dead Viet Cong soldiers laying in a pool of their own blood. I couldn't believe that I was looking at 3 human beings that were alive just moments ago. Young guys who maybe had sisters or brothers and parents. Oh man, they were probably just chilling around moments before we're rived, and here we're moments later. Looking at their motionless bodies, it's crazy. But I must say that out justified. because they were the enemy and they would have been standing over our dead bodies. Instead, true, a few days later, we got assigned to a different location which saw heavier casualties and needed more support. He grew accustomed to the violence and saw many of our young men die painful one day. I was told by my NCO that someone wanted to speak with me. I was greeted by an older man in his late 50s. Looked totally out of place. His demeanor was calculated and predictive, and even my commanding officer seemed to have turned into eyes man in front of him. Wow, okay's right there. You know something's up. You already calculated the demeanor, his character and everything, and how everyone treats him as well, so you know something is up, that's how. You know there's ard flag that it's going off in your head. Be careful with this dude, as Frederick Douglass, an intelligence officer stationed nearby, fed. I was going to be assigned to him as an RTO for his unit. Who the heck I like eat my. Unit 10 wanted to stay with them, but orders are orders and I had no choices. So I got on the Huey and went with him well, and in a heavily wooded area, next to a few Viet Cong huts. It was heavily built up by the enemy, and I could definitely imagine the fight that must have taken place here. There were some guys who had gas masks on and others standing nearby, but they didn't seem to notice me or even care that I was there. It was a very strange atmosphere that didn't feel quite right. Yeah, be careful, these guys didn't act like normal soldiers, and definitely didn't have the look of fear in their eyes, as most of us did. I even tried to talk with some of them. All I got was a strange, emotionless glare, like they were infected with something. Like they were robots, like they were possessed. Right, no, I'm just playing, but seriously, yeah. They definitely have seen death more than once, so it doesn't even faze them. They're definitely here on another mission, if you know what I mean. Whatever it was, they all had it, and it made me feel very uneasy, Officer Douglas, and I entered one of the smaller huts, and I was told to stay put until someone would come and get me. I should have just stayed there and waited, but I was too curious and apprehensive to relax. Wow, you didn't even follow orders my way, you towards the main tent, and took a peek inside what is all made my stomach drop like it never had before. What on a makeshift table lay 6 murky containers. Each one of them had a severed head of a guerrilla fighter inside, with tubes and wires protruded from them. My green liquid seemed to be reacting wires. Lord have mercy. Are these people, broy? The military is yeah, GG's man, bro, military people, bro. I have so much respect for the military people, but let's be honest, a lot of the people in the military are brainwashed. Bro, they are brainwashed. They are mentally ill. Look at the dude that a huth that lit himself on fire. And free Palestine, all that stuff, himself on fire, that dude was part of the military. That dude was mentally ill, brainwashed. What the heck is going on here with the heads, as their mouths and eyes were quivering like they were half alive? What in the worldly felt? A hand grabbed onto my shoulder. Intelligence Officer Douglas looked very upset. I immediately asked what they were doing inside. Their Screwed angrily said that it should not have gone in there and sent me back to my hut. We must have been attacked or something, because I woke up a day later, in triage, with several broken ribs and a fractured collarbone, with no memory of anything that happened. Right after that, what did they drug you? You don't even remember what happened. Several broken rib, like what they drugged you something, or maybe because of shock you forgot. CUI woke up a day later and with several broken ribs and a fractured collarbone, with no memory of anything that happened right after. That, oh man, that's crazy, and never saw Officer Frederick Douglass or those soldiers ever again during my time, if that was even his real name. Often wonder what those guys were doing back there. Maybe they were trying to gather intelligence from dead enemy soldiers, or something. Either way, it was a strange experience that I'll never forget. I can't imagine. All names in the story be changed and allocations will be left out. This experience has left me very paranoid in a lot of ways. It was the late hours of the night. I could feel the thud of my heartbeat inside of my chest. The sour armored vehicle veered off the gravel road, plowing through the dense underbin. Weeks since Bravowneth had gone silent, vanishing like a wisp of smoke on a windy day. The distress call had crackled through our comms earlier, an unexpected sign of life from our long-missing comrades, but what haunted memory than their sudden reemergence was the content of the air message, a cryptic string of numbers repeating endlessly. "Sergeant Davis, are you sure this is the place?" I asked, over the static hiss off the radio cutting through the silence that had settled over our squad. "That's what command confirmed. Get ready." Davis replied as our vehicle came to a halt. The dense fog seemed to get worse. We disembarked into the unknown. The silence of the abandoned base growing increasingly unsettling. Buildings stood like hollowed-out husks with windows shattered, doors ajar. Living town. Not even a few weeks ago, now just a ghost town. Davis ordered dues in a whisper to start as we moved forward, with our boots crunching on broken glass and debris. Scenes of a struggle were everywhere, overturned furniture, bloody rags, and scattered ammunition. The ground painting a picture of the chaos that had taken place here recently. The base, once bustling hub of military activity, was early silent, now except for our own shallow breaths and the distant echoing cry of the numbers broadcast haunted bros we near the command center. The transmission grew louder, a constant chant that seemed to bore into my mind its meaning, as elusive as the shadows in the fog surrounding you centering the command center. We found it abandoned the air stale, the only light coming from the blinking consoles. As the radio speakers crackling with static repeated the sequence over and over in a monotone voice, 582478. The heck are these coordinates? Corporal Lee whispered. What does it mean? I saw where yes were wide as she scanned the room. Commander H. Haskins might have known, Davis said. Commander H. Haskins was the name of the unit's leader, who had vanished along with his team. We continued our search through the desolate base, hoping to find a clue, a survivor, anything, but it was the laboratory that changed everything. The laboratory door was ajar, hanging off its shing. As it forced open inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and chemical shadows and overturned equipment where signs of activity halted abruptly. Here we go. Then we saw them bodies, members of Bravounid, or what was left of them, were sprawled across the floor. Their faces contorted in expressions of terror. Was a massacre. While the cause was unclear, no bullet wounds, no signs of struggle on their remains. And then Lee gestured toward a corner of the room. What? There, amidst the pile of research notes and hastily abandoned experiments, lay the body of Commander H. Haskins. Clutched in a stiffless hand was a notepad. The numbers 58247 scrolled across it. What are these numbers? Bro, brothers, always something messed up happening in these labs. Bro, shaky handwriting followed by a single chilling sentence. They're coming for us. Oh, the revelation struck us like a physical blow. The implications of his words spiraling into a million questions with no answers. Who was coming for them? Who was this distress? Call, not a beacon of hope, but a warning. Yep, it was then that the reality of our situation descended upon us. The ice isolation, the eerie silence broken only by that relentless string of numbers. That's crazy. We were not the rescuers, we were the next victims. Oh my gosh, woo, I would immediately get my boys the heck out of the you are trapped. This was an ambush. This was the bait. Police help, help, police help. Oh, this is sad, man. This is very sad. Okay, let's see what happens. Panic set in as the base seemed to close in on us, the fog outside. Like it was thickening, our only choice was to flee. And stumbling through the fog, guided by the distant light of our vehicle. The numbers continued to echo in my mind, a chant that seemed to follow us, whispering through the fog. Just as the vehicle came into view, a shadow emerged from the misto, colder than Eth itself, crawled up my spine as the strange man cloaked in shadow moved towards. So we need to go now. Davis' shout snapped me back to reality, the urgency in his voice mirroring a primal fear within me. Our training had prepared us for many different types of enemies, but we had no idea what we were dealing with here. Yeah, we scrambled into the vehicle. Lee's hands were shaking as she manned the communications with obvious fear and shaking in her voice. This is Alpha Unit call and command, Mayday, Mayday. She better be knowing how to drive. Bravo, you copy. Over the radio crackled the numbers, interrupting her plea for help. 5 and 82, wow. I couldn't shake the feeling that those numbers held some kind of meaning into what we had stumbled into. This is crazy. The base faded into the distances, wallowed by the fog, so stood the person who emerged from the shadows of the fog, yet the terror it inspired lingered as we raced toward an uncertain future. Davis broke the silence and said, we can't let this end here. We need to find out what those numbers mean and what happened to Bravounity. I wanted nothing more than to find these things out as well. It felt like we owed it to them, thinking of the twisted, lifeless bodies we left behind. Wow, as the first light of dawn began to pierce the darkness, I felt a grim determination settle over me. We had survived the night, but the real battle felt like it was just beginning, armed with nothing but a string of numbers and the haunting memories of what we had witnessed, the mystery. Off those numbers and the horrors of what could have happened to Bravounit still remain a mystery, and it stays with me, haunting me. I'm sure it stays with everyone from my unit. The horrors at base were just a chapter in a story far greater and more terrifying than any of us could have imagined. Oh man, that is crazy. That is they. Yeah, that last story. Oh my goodness, bro, imagine you and your men, you and your boys. It's everything abandoned. You see blood all over the place. Whatever heart the voice is 5-4, whatever you're figuring out what the heck is going on. You going to the laboratory, everyone is scattered. Everyone is brutally shredded. You see your boy that you've seen dead in the corner with the numbers, and you're like, the heck they, and you see you're at it. And it says they're coming for us, broned. Then you literally see people walking out of the shadows. Nah, this is demonic. This is demonic. That military, I can be a masculine man in other ways, but like this is a whole another level. God bless these military people, man. God bless the people that put their life on the line every single day, every sigh. Inglade, God bless these people. I pray that God may protect them, like every single day when they're in the battlefield, every single person. I'll catch you guys later, take care. God bless, peace. As they hold up, wait. A minute's you win perfect music.